Welcome, 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 and thank you for joining me on a new episode of today's Electrical Estimating. I'm your co-host, Chris Trommer, and unfortunately, our other co-host, Sal Huerta, is unable to be here with us this week due to some technical difficulties down in Southern California. But we have a great episode for you today. If you can recall, a couple months back, we'd sat down and talked about tariffs. At that point, they were impending. We really tried to just give you some insight into what a tariff is, how they work, the history of them, what could be their implications. Well, fast forwards, we've seen obviously some effects of these tariffs that have been rolled out. Others have been delayed, so we haven't seen their full effect. But we had the chance to sit down with Travis from North Coast Electric to really understand how this is affecting distributors and how distributors are looking at these tariffs, how they're prepping for them, services that they're providing, really get a, I guess, boots on the ground kind of look at this. And, we wanted to share this information to just give you some additional insight. We would love to hear from you too in the comments. After you give this a listen, please let us know if you're seeing any effects on your estimates, your projects, if your distributors are doing stuff to keep you informed or to add some services to help with what's going on with the tariffs. So, I don't want to take up much of your time. As always, this is just to say hi, give you some intro into what we're going to be discussing today, but it is a great episode. Travis does a good job of, highlighting what North Coast is doing for their customers to help them through this. So, let's just jump right into it. Appreciate your time. If this is your first time joining us, thank you. Please hit that subscribe button. We try to drop episodes every Friday for you. So with that being said, have a good rest of your day. Take care. So Travis, one of the things that I'd seen since tariffs had come up is sort of manufacturers, some of them have been shipping product into their own warehouses stateside and, warehousing months of supplies of products or years supply of products. Others were sort of hesitating and waiting to see how these tariffs would play out with their international partners. So we hadn't really seen any really rise in prices, especially when you look at 6 months ago, there was the talk of tariffs and people got a little jumpy, then 10% across the board. Then April came and there was a big change in how tariffs were being dispatched across the world. Then we had a 90-day pause. And now we're finding ourselves back to where some tariff letters are being sent out and they're going to be implemented. So there's been a lot of uncertainty and questions. Me not being an electrician, not being a distributor, you have probably been seeing the changes in cost that you're seeing from your partners, your manufacturers, suppliers, and these guys. Have you been seeing changes over the last 6 months where you've been seeing increases in certain products, or are things really staying even for the time being and they're sort of holding on to those additional costs? What are you seeing nowadays on these different price changes?
Yeah, I think, the trickle down effect, we're the distributor, we're our direct is, the manufacturer's rep deal with the factories deal with, their suppliers, their raw material suppliers. So being so far down the line, we sometimes get the delayed effect, I would say, from what the announcements make, sometimes. So we're not always necessarily keeping up with what the latest in news, but I think out of safety and, the manufacturers are passing along increases definitely, from year to date, out of not necessarily off of the tariffs have been implemented, but out of, fear a lot of times, a lot out of fear. So, yeah, it's definitely affecting our cost side, and it's raising the price of material, and it's affecting whether jobs are awarded or not.
Got it. Now you're saying fear. So I would guess that's sort of uncertainty as well. So manufacturers,
Uncertainty.
yeah,
Mhm.
sort of guessing, hey, we might be getting a 10% increase or 20% increase. We know we're bringing it in from Southeast Asia, so we can guess this is what the tariff is. So, hey, Travis, you're going to be seeing, an increase in 2 months or 3 months
Mhm.
on particular products. So, what you said there, you're sort of seeing delayed effects though, because a lot of us hear these changes of, 20% tariff today or 30% tariff next week or 40%. That's not something you guys see that exact day, right? That's something that sort of trickles down over time to you guys.
Yeah, because we do our inventory weighted average. Now if it all of it depends on if we're doing direct factory factory to customer orders, or if we're pulling from our own stock that we've bought months prior. We, generally speaking, our terms, we want to turn material over in 60 days. What we might be paying today might have actually cost us less, or vice versa. So it's we're seeing from a distributor side, and quote feedback is pricing all over the board,
Yeah, I was about to say. I mean,
depending on when with distributor, when we're buying material,
yeah.
versus when or versus if we're buying it directly from the factory.
So
So for instance, like copper, for instance, if we're buying, large quantity, like a blanket size, thousands of pounds, we obviously don't have that in our warehouse. We're doing direct ship from the factory. That's
yeah.
going to be probably the most accurate to what the market's at today versus what our inventory side is.
Gotcha. Now, how much of a pain in the ass is this for when it comes to your pricing, guys? Because I mean,
Oh, huge.
you
It's
just
horrible.
saying it to me right now. I mean, you're talking factory direct, you're talking stock pricing, you're talking changing prices. So, you know, it seems like you could be having a price on something you warehouse, but then for 1 week it's good, but then the new product you're bringing in and warehousing is affected by the tariff, so the price for that is going up, and then the tariffs change 6 months later. 60 days is already passed, and all the product is going back down. And
Mhm.
you can have product changes between warehouse stock depending on when it came in and what it's being sold. I- I'm getting confused saying this. How are you guys doing with keeping all this together and being able to, I guess, inform your customers and communicate to them sort of what's happening in this ever changing world when it's so much going on with you?
Yeah, that's a great question. We're just taking it day by day. We're being smart with our stock purchases. I would say we have to keep up with demand, but we're not making excessive bulk purchases for stock.
Okay.
Uh, so that, which I think that led to some of your questions on,
Yeah.
delayed inventory in hand. And then also we're seeing where more contractors are bulk purchasing with the fear of the pricing going up.
That's what
Uh,
I was going to ask you in the
and,
future.
and locking, they want to lock in their cost
Yeah.
for the duration of the job. Um, I was doing this with another contractor that is a it's like a 500 unit apartment complex. They wanted to purchase like all their material for the job, which was like a 2-year job, all at once. Whether they whether it was a good time or not, they just wanted to lock it in so that they
You
know
know
what
what?
they're.
Yeah, they don't have to guess over the next 2 years if price is going to go up, go down, if
Yep.
availability is going to be there for them. This way, they just purchase it and then they're going to warehouse it and basically for the next 2 years as the phases come into play and use what they need to do out of there.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
did they?
So we're seeing a lot of emotional purchasing, impulse purchasing. We're
Yeah,
not consistent, and it's hard for a distributor to predict, our inventory, how much inventory we want to hold, because of a lot more, project level purchasing, not just, your weekly buys.
for your phase buys. I mean, it's makes sense why you brought up a point there with the emotional buy. I mean, obviously, when you get to an uncertain time, like we're talking about now, And when you're trying to do it logically, but sometimes the logical sense of things don't add up, more of an emotional side has to take preference over that to make your decisions going forwards. And we've just discussed it here. There's so many changes going on. At some point, you have to just go, okay, we got to just figure this out and do something. You know,
Hmm.
what
Yep.
you,
And I think contractors need to, make sure in their quotes and their terms that their pricing is only good for so much time. Yeah, I would hate to see you're committing to a fixed cost over especially over a long term project. It's it's tough.
do you think that's why a lot of them are shifting to that bulk purchase all at once? Because it just gives them a peace of mind. Hey, I'm done with this. I can move on. Or maybe they just don't have the resources within their companies to keep up with what's going on and try to forecast the plan and guess the best time to buy is going to be in the future. And maybe it's not. And they'd rather just say, screw it. We're just going to buy it all here now. And that's one thing I don't have to worry about. And I know my constant price is there and it's not going to affect my
Yeah.
profit margin down the line.
Yep. And it's kind of like that old phrase, it's impossible to try to time the market, like it's in the stock market. You just when you're ready, you're ready. Don't try to time it where you think you're gonna win. Yeah, because you just never know.
Yeah, sort of if you feel right now is good enough for you with what you've estimated into your project margin's good enough and you're feeling comfortable with it, it's better to just pull the trigger now and be safe with that investment than wait it out and start doing this in phases and then you get hit and now it's 145% tariff and now you've shot your profit margin completely out the
Yep.
barrel.
Exactly. Mhm.
Yeah.
So from the distributor side, we're also seeing more requests for stored material.
I was about to ask you that because you had mentioned the contractor warehousing. Now I know a lot of distributors the last half decade or something have really stepped up their value added services to make up for any competition from outside sources, Home Depot, Amazon, whatever it means. And I mean, I think that's one of the biggest things that distributors bring to the table is not only their expertise, but the value added services that they do have available. So
Mhm,
are you guys accommodating these requests for them to make bulk purchases and warehouse it within your facilities
mhm,
for them?
mhm. Yep.
Now, is there sort of like a rate charge for that? You know, like, hey, we'll rent you out this spacing for a certain amount of time, or is it we're just good guys and we're going to help you out?
Oh, it's
Or
kind of
something the
it's
case may
kind
be.
of it's it's kind of negotiable. We don't have a set guideline to that question.
Yeah. So, is this something new that you guys have been looking into recently? Something you've done before, but that was really not really used because the time didn't dictate that it was something that had to be done?
We had not in the past been storing material for this long period of time.
Yep.
Usually, it's like a bring it in, and there's construction. With construction, there's obviously all different variables that are at play. So it's not just the electrical. There might
You got to wait for the concrete
well,
guy, wait for
wait for the
HVAC.
concrete guy, wait for permitting, wait for there's something else. There's a strike going on, whatever it is. There's always an instance where they say, and we're seeing a lot more jobs being delayed than being um, on schedule or even faster than schedule. So that's what we're seeing more of a reason behind storing long periods of time is just scheduling more
Sure.
so
Yeah.
than
The,
more and then in the Seattle area particularly where we don't have the luxury of a lot of or contractors that have a lot of luxury of lay down space given
gotcha.
so the general contractors are not they're not giving their subs enough, and it's just not because it's their fault. It's just the fact of life that there just isn't enough space for stored material on site. So they've
I mean,
they've they've
wondered
they've,
if
they've,
you guys
they've, uh,
step up and
they've
do that for him.
yeah, they've leaned on us to help them with stored material, and that's a big competitive advantage that we try to leverage.
And that's sort of huge because, you know, I was going to get into my next question with you, like sort of how you're communicating with your contractors about these ever changing things. And, there's been a lot of conversation, excuse me, when I go to the NAD meetings on, how are you working with your contractors, your distributors, with, how you work, what are you doing? I've never heard somebody come up and actually say we're opening up space with our facilities for to help them make bulk purchases and hold them. I mean, nobody's ever mentioned that, and I think that's huge. 'Cause as you said, it takes for your customers, it takes some unease off of them and lets them go. Okay, we purchased everything. It's warehoused. It's where we need to be. We don't need to go purchase a warehouse. We don't need to rent space, especially like you said, and being in Seattle, it's hard to find that space. You guys are taking a lot of things off their shoulders. And I think that's a great way and a great value added service to go about in an uncertain time for a company to step up and realize that it's something that nobody's talked about. I mean,
Mhm.
others probably be doing it, but I've been to two of the recent NADs and nobody's ever said we're stocking in the warehouse large supplies where a contractor purchase product to help them buy it once where they feel comfortable and then not have to take it home. I think that's huge. So good for you guys on that part. And it's an interesting concept and a great value added source, I think, for an uncertain time to make people feel comfortable and assist them in their purchasing decisions. Um,
Absolutely.
we've talked about before, this has been a big thing, these up and down prices. I've seen some distributors that are creating blogs on their Facebook, on their websites and putting out Facebook posts that this is the changes we're seeing, or these are the changes that are happening, or check in for pricing. How are you guys keeping up? As we said, it's a pain in the ass for your internal team to try to keep up and understand all these changes. How are you sort of communicating that down to your contractors, your customers, to let them know when they can anticipate price increases or when changes might be happening? Is that something that you're setting up systems in place or have them in place to be able to say, hey, this is going to happen in the next 30 days, or we see this forecast in the next 60 days because this is happening?
Unfortunately, we don't get that much time ahead of when the impact happens. I'll use copper for instance. It changes on a daily basis.
Mhm.
It changes on an hourly basis actually, but we don't we want to avoid volatility. The contractor scene as best as we can. So maybe we're seeing more higher fluctuations, but we don't want the contractor to necessarily see that. So we again, that's if it's a through stock
Mhm.
buys. Now, if it's a factory direct, that's another story. We're at the mercy of what
Yeah, that's sort of dictated to you.
dictating to us what the factory's showing. From an inventory, if we've already purchased it level, we try to mitigate the volatility as best we can.
Gotcha. I remember, man, I went golfing once during COVID and I was there with a purchasing agent at a contractor and he was like, his phone kept ringing. I'm like, what is that? He's like, it's every time the price of copper changes. And it's funny that you mentioned it because, that's when copper was going nuts and it was changing every what? Minute, every hour, every day. It was just up and down. So you bring that up. I mean, that he was saying how he would get pricing and it would be good for like 24 hours sometimes.
Mhm.
And, are we at that same point
And you have
now?
to get and being on the West Coast, a lot of times we're at a disadvantage.
Okay.
Um, because if we're dealing with someone from the East Coast, we're 3 hours behind on getting our orders in.
Okay.
Mhm.
Gotcha. Now, are you guys seeing that same kind of volatility as I mentioned back then? Or is this more, maybe not copper itself, but overall, it seems like it's a little bit more, there could be increases and fluctuations, but they're a little bit longer time periods for adjustment because they're not happening so rapidly. Or am I off on that assumption?
Sorry, what was the question again?
So are you guys seeing as much change as we did with copper back, say, during the pandemic time when prices were skyrocketing 1 hour and then dropping the next. Is that happening currently with like copper and say other products, or is it because tariffs take form and they say, hey, well, these tariffs are going to be in a week or 2 weeks, that it gives you more time to transition and prices are slowly creeping up or transitioning higher? Or is it the same volatility where we're seeing daily changes on everything, making it difficult to lock down pricing?
It's a little bit of both.
Gotcha. Depending
Uh,
on what
it's
product you're looking at, really.
Yeah, it depends on what product you're looking at.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Are you guys seeing any issues with, because you said you're getting factory direct products as well? I remember talking to a neighbor that they were waiting for like 8 months for switchgear, like a year ago. Are tariffs adding on to the delays that you're seeing for certain products coming from overseas? For one reason or another. I'm not sure if it even plays a factor. I'm just curious if tariffs do by chance slow down, the supply chain, or if they're actually affecting the supply chain at all, or if it's just pricing.
I think it's mostly pricing so far. Knock on wood. I think they haven't made the change yet to sourcing. Like, I think a lot of companies are probably thinking, sourcing more material domestically, with as opposed to non-domestic, which could affect the lead time. I don't think that's affected the lead time drastically as much. I think the more the lead time being affected has to do with, again, going back to those bulk purchases. People are
Gotcha.
people, people are buying more at
That will
once and more at one time. Um,
sort of clearing the shelves, and then
or
you're
yeah,
buying
clearing our shelves, and then we have to wait
still.
for the factory to
Gotcha.
replenish us. Where a lot of contractors are used to certain products to always be available at all times.
Yeah,
So
it's sort of, they'd be doing a phase, so you won't be going and buying your whole project at one time. So now they're doing that. You're losing so much more stock at a bigger purchase point on Tuesday, and then everybody comes in Wednesday. You're like, well, you got to wait till next week for us to at least get it back in here. So,
yeah,
so it's not as much the tariffs that are affecting the supply chain, but it could be the new purchasing dynamics of contractors and how they're purchasing that could not necessarily have an issue with the supply chain, but just what the hell's on the shelves. So they're like, when COVID hit, we didn't have toilet paper because everybody bought 14 things of toilet paper for no apparent reason.
that's a pretty good example.
But
Yeah,
these guys at least have a reason why they're doing it, which makes it a little bit better to understand.
yeah, yeah. So we're seeing a similar situation. As you know, there's other variables that's not tariff related. I think just the workforce has shrunk a little bit in our industry, which have a factor to that. But if we're speaking just based off tariffs, I
Not a
think
huge change.
yeah, not huge supply chain. Just going back to the bulk purchasing affects our shelves.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So it does, but not directly. This is more of, yeah, got it. Now, something you did mention though was domestic sourcing. Are you seeing a lot of contractors that are requesting American made products or products that fit, what is it, BABA or Buy American, Build American, or I forget the acronyms we're at
Yeah,
right now.
we're seeing a lot more on projects not requested by the contractors themselves. Actually, I've got a meeting later to kind of go over that. A similar example was the owner requested BABA, Build America, Buy America, and then they had a fixture schedule that was not BABA that we're going to have to value engineer and to rechange the schedule altogether to try to meet those requirements. But yeah, as far as a project level, we are seeing more owners requesting, you know,
Good domestically sourced and produced product.
yeah, which in most cases adds, it's an increase in cost.
That's what I was going to say. Is it? Do you see an increase in cost with as I mean, you're one distributor, so I mean, there's talk about the whole country, and then if everybody's seeing the same sort of change in buying patterns where more people are requesting it, we just talked about having supply chain issues. Do you see some of these because more people are buying these products that are BABA that there's some more difficulties actually getting a hold of them because there's more purchasing of them at the same time?
Yeah, yeah. So the demand's going up, of course, but also just the availability. I mean, there's a lot of products that are just not made in the
Yeah,
United States. uh, so then what? What do you do?
yeah. No, no, I hear you because that's one big thing I keep seeing companies promoting are, American assembled products. I mean, you go on their website or their marketing materials and it'll say assembled in America or built in America, produced in America. Like it seems like in the last 4 to 5 months, more and more of the marketing materials I see for manufacturers in the States is has some mention of if they're made in America, assembled in America, somebody touched it in America, whatever it may be. It seems like that's a real big selling point for them recently. So, and it seems like with the conversation with you that more owners or contractors, people are looking at those type of products a little bit more than they maybe had in the past. And even if the price is a little bit more, they're paying attention to it.
Yeah,
Okay. Now, do you feel, in your opinion, that built in America, we've always had the pers- the notion that products made in America are just so much more expensive because they're made here. You got to pay people so much more money. Do you think that with the current tariff situation that we're seeing, that the price of the American made products compared to the products that are being produced overseas and brought in are getting closer and closer because of the tariff situation?
I
Or
think
is
they're
there,
getting.
right?
I think I think they're getting closer. Yeah, it's probably gonna have to depend on you know, the manufacturers can't just shift their sourcing overnight. It's gonna take some time. Uh, it's we're still so new to it
Yeah.
to even tell.
Yeah. I mean, even looking ahead, like you just said, it's not like somebody can snap their fingers and go, well, now we're just going to start doing it in Tennessee tomorrow because you got to transfer everything over and build the infrastructure and get the plants and the people and everything built in place. So you're talking years. So looking at it that way, do you think that with the way things are going now, we're going to see sort of this side by side of Bible products and international products based off of the tariffs they're getting to where they're sort of close to each other. But then over time, we'll start seeing more and more products being produced domestically and perhaps the price of those going down because of the mass production within the States.
I would think so. It's going to get closer. The delta between the two might get closer. Um, yeah,
Mm.
but again, it's still early, really early to tell.
Yeah. I mean, it's been 6 months. I mean, it's crazy that it's only been 6 months and it feels like we've been going through this for a couple of years at this point and we're having the conversations. And but I feel like there's been so much uncertainty as we started out this whole conversation with, and up and down, that people don't understand what's happening and they're trying to adjust. And I feel like with the uncertainty, people I've talked to, they don't know what to do, and some of them just don't do anything because they don't know which direction to go.
Hmm.
So do you guys meet regularly to try to even if you don't know what's happening or what's going to occur, and just sort of sit down as a team and just go, okay, hey, what else can we be doing, just like you guys creating space in your warehousing for them, but just sort of trying to forecast what may happen or what you could be doing?
Yeah, yeah, we're having to really think more outside the box than we ever have as far as getting their costs down,
Yeah.
being more competitive, and we're outsourcing or to manufacturing partners that we don't typically didn't we never used to go to. So our supplier list has been growing because of the limitations they have as far as delivery and Buy America requirements. So yeah, it's just been it's just getting out of routine and
Sort of starting
thinking
routine.
more outside the box.
Yeah. Now, something there you mentioned, we had a conversation recently with somebody that was saying how labor savings products have been a big thing, not only because it can offset the cost of any increases that we're seeing with tariffs,
Hmm.
but also it helps to decrease the amount of time for install, which then decreases the amount of time you're paying for labor that then can make up for any additional cost you're having to pay for labor. So you can sort of even out your estimates a little bit better. Do you guys see pushing more labor savings products and solutions and making those more available to contractors and highlighting them more as like a big push for you at this time as well?
That's been a huge push. Our vendors, our manufacturing partners, they're really working. They're doing a great job of coming out with more labor saving products. I'm going to use the term prefab, for
Yep.
instance. Um, where contractors used to do a lot more. Well, back they didn't used to do as much prefabbing. Then contractors were doing a lot more prefabbing in
Yep.
house, to where now manufacturers and even distributors. We even tried it at one point, um, to do more to do some prefabbing for the contractors, um,
Gotcha.
from a labor savings. So yes, yeah. I mean, North Coast, the distributor, we were one of, I don't very few, I think, distributors that tried out prefabbing,
Okay.
uh, but it didn't pencil out. It was short lived on that. But
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because we talked with another a contractor out in the East Coast that said they literally have like a whole warehouse right now for prefab. And he goes, not only is it safer for our guys that they're not doing installs on an active job site, like we can do so much more and get pre-assemblies done for units and then ship them over. And now all these products pre-assembled and they can just pop them right in. They're good to go. It's saving us so much more time on the job
Mhm.
site. So it's interesting you brought that up because it's something I see in marketing materials all the time as well. It's just labor savings. This is labor savings. This is labor savings. And it really feels like they're pushing it more often than not than I'd seen years before. That's a big push. Labor
Yeah,
savings.
it really depends on the job too. I mean, I've talked to numerous contractors about that topic, and a lot of jobs you can't do prefabbing because there's it's just not as repetitive. It really, I mean, that's the only negative feedback I've gotten on prefab is, a lot of projects did not have, repeats,
Like that
assemblies,
cookie or setup. Yeah.
repeat assemblies, and they spent more time actually trying to figure it out based off the plans they drew and how the manufacturer drew it up. They spent almost more time trying to figure it out than they could have done themselves.
You're probably just those houses. Got it. So certain
So
situations, pre-
certain applications is great. A lot of applications,
you're
it's
going to
just
run into some issues with it. Yeah.
you're just gonna run into issues. Yeah.
That's going to be on them to have to figure that out going forwards and a little bit trial, a little bit error, they'll figure it out there. So, well, Travis, that's all I got for you, man.
Okay.
Nice and easy.
Appreciate your time, Christopher.
Hey, yours. Thank you. Getting your perspective on this and what you guys are doing and some of the things you're implementing now and how you're working with this to better suit your customers, and help them through this uncertain time so that they feel more comfortable. It sounds great. I know it's not easy for you guys, obviously. It's not easy for them, but it's nice to see you guys are stepping into a place that could really assist them through it. And they know they have a partner in you guys. So I
That's
appreciate you.
that's the big thing that, my message to these to contractors is we're in together. I know they're feeling the uncertainty, the unknowns. We are, well, we're right there with them, and let's go about this together.
Yeah. No, I think you got that point through thoroughly. So appreciate it. And thanks for being on.